reports from our principals.
Good evening. Hi there, I'm Erin Probus, the principal at Hornet Park Elementary, and it is wonderful to be here with you at the start of a fantastic school year. Yeah. It has been a really successful start at Hornet Park, but that is not because of a lack of effort. Instead, it's because of tireless effort put forth by staff. So I wanted to give a special shout out and thank you to Angela English, Amy Parker, and their partnership with the Transportation Department. I'm sure you can imagine, but when you are organizing, 420 K-1 kiddos, the number one concern for parents is they get home safely so they can share about their day. And so that is my number one stressor as the building leader, and they just did a beautiful job. It took tons of time, but we had minimal problems. I mean, very few, if any. It went very, very well. So also, though, part of that ownership goes to a thank you to parents. Parents are at the bus stop this year meeting their children. They're patient in the car rider line. We've even already received compliments that the car rider line is going smoothly and efficiently, and you could have picked me up off the floor after that, because this time of year is not typically what we hear, because it takes some extra time. And also I wanted to give a shout out, a thank you to our operations department. We started the year with the cleanest, tidiest version of Hornet Park that I can remember in recent years, and so I'm thankful to all of our teams that pulled that off. So logistically, we're off to a sound start. Also, with regards to academics, we've already been working hard to get baseline data on our tiny Hornets, and we've already been having data-based academic conversations at PLC and Cluster. I will summarize with just one piece of data for you that we looked at historical data for just our reading levels of first grade kiddos as they start their first grade year. Since 2012, looked at how many of our students are coming in when they start first grade, where we need them to be. We are the highest this year that we've been since 2012, and we are up 17% from just last year at this time. And that tells us we can really applaud the kindergarten year that they experienced at Hornet Park, and that many more students are staged for academic success with reading this year. So awesome. And then behaviorally, just a shout out and a thank you to Mr. Osborne, who's our administrative lead with our PBIS, Positive Behavior Interventions and Support, as well as our PBIS team and our teachers. We worked really hard on training these children on how to do school successfully. So they've done a wonderful job with routines and procedures. Lindsay Page took time at the beginning of the school year to teach staff about zones of regulation. So helping our students and staff speak a common language about what we're feeling, why we're feeling that way, and how to address it. So just a thank you to that team as well. So with those things summarized, we have 217 students who are now staged for a successful year at Hornet Park. So thank you.
I'm Craig Butler this evening for a minute here. He did send me his notes, and if you aren't aware, he brought a baby girl home this past weekend. He adopted a baby girl, and he said make sure you have pictures on the phone to show the school board later. So Charlotte Jane Ann Buckler is now living in Greenwood, and happy as can be. So he's ecstatic, and he asked me to share this with you. The school year is off to a terrific start. The students are rotating between their three content classes. Each teacher has spent a great deal of time teaching classroom procedures and routines so that the students will be able to transition between classes in a quick and efficient manner. That is new and different for Central. So the goal is to have the maximum amount of learning time in each of the blocks. Each group of content teachers are also collaborating every other week to plan for instruction and assessment. And he is very proud of how well the staff and students are settling into this new school year. He also said, as we continue to improve providing social and emotional support to our students, this year each class will begin the day with community circle and then end the day in a closing circle. Trudy Wolf has provided guidance and lessons for the teachers to use during these two times. It's been amazing to watch the relationships that are being built not only between the teachers and the students, but between the students as well. In addition, our Mindful Moment Room is already in use. Students are able to, with the guidance of an adult, process their emotions of sadness, anger, or frustration in order to be successful in the classrooms. A huge thank you to Mrs. Wolf for her hard work and effort in our social and emotional learning. So that's from Central. And then for South Grove, I started off with a bunch of thank yous because the year has started off wonderfully, and it's because of all the people that work there, and I wanted to give some thank yous. So I wanted to first of all thank Heather Brown and Melody Hamilton, who have been back to school with me since July 9th, and they have been taking care of business. They have made sure that the students are enrolled properly. They've gathered records from other schools for our new students. They've sent records to other schools for students that had left us. They've answered parent question after parent question after parent question and answered the phones, and teacher question after teacher question. So those two at the front office have just made this year start out wonderfully. They're very hard workers, and I'm thankful for them. And I wanted to thank Missy Keeley and Morgan DeConick for cleaning, organizing, rearranging, moving again, in order to create a mindful moments room for South Grove, much like what Central has. And in a school that has no room, they managed to create it. So in this room, it will allow our students a place to regroup and refocus. And then it allows them to swoop in, to have space to counsel the kiddos so that they can reset and get back to the classroom and have a successful day. And this was a huge feat. I just can't even say, I don't even know how they managed it, but they managed it, and it's going to be a wonderful thing for our children. There were tears in there today, and Miss Morgan was counseling the tears, and the student returned back to class successfully. So it's doing what it's supposed to do. And I also wanted to thank South Grove adult and child staff. They meet through the summer with our children and parents, and they are a huge help. So I don't know if you all know how wonderful the adult and child staff is. I would imagine for all of the buildings, but we have Miss Kate and Miss Holly P., Miss Emma, Miss Lauren, and Miss Holly G., and they are just invaluable to our students. You'll see them in the classrooms with them. You'll see them in the hallways with them. You'll see them counseling them, and they are a much-needed piece to the success of our South Grove students, so I want to thank them. And as far as data, our students are currently taking NWEA reading and iReady diagnostic math, so I'll be able to share all of that with you once they're all finished, but all the classes aren't finished quite yet. We've had some computer issues, so we're working through all that. So hopefully by the next school board meeting, I can share some of that baseline data that we're getting for the kiddos. Thank you. And I'll share pictures in a minute.
Good evening. Well, I stood here a year ago thinking I could not possibly have a busier summer than the one before when we implemented the Hornet Enrichment Academy, but I successfully found a way to shorten my summer tremendously again. We did not have a lot of time off at Beech Grove Middle School this summer, and that's okay. We implemented our block schedule. This was kind of an idea that Mary and I talked about in November and then talked to you about in February, and then started working on the details of that, and that continued every week throughout the summer. A huge thank you to Ryan Morgan and Lee Lux and Shelley. We have 494 kids today, and that's, I don't know, 25 or 30 fewer than the schedules they touched. And they touched every single schedule, and they looked at every single class. It's a tremendous amount of time that they spent making sure that every kid had every appropriate course. Speaking of courses, we added some new ones. We have a world language class. We have 7th grade ag. So we have the same number of kids in ag, generally speaking, a few fewer 8th graders and now some 7th graders. So we're hooking some kids in FFA younger. We also added a weightlifting course. So kids, just a reminder to everyone that our kids ranked their electives. They did not choose them. There's a distinction there. They ranked them. So we did our best to get everybody at least a 1 or a 2 in their ranking. Our Hornet Resource Time continues this year. It'll be phase number 2. We started this last year, and because it's year number 2, we have to come up with entire second year worth of lessons. So We have some ideas on that. We are, as a corporation, looking at a Prevention Matters grant. We'll infuse that into our Hornet resource time. We did a new back-to-school format this year. We did it over the course of 2 evenings, issued our Chromebooks during that time. So I think in 7th grade, we had a 75% turnout for back-to-school night, which is excellent. Our Hornet Enrichment Academy is going into year number 2. We currently have 9 students in there, and we look to grow that. One thing I left out in the new courses, we added 8th grade science as well in the new curriculum with that. As far as extracurricular activities, our next home football game is August 22nd. We already had our first one. Our first home soccer is September 11th. Volleyball is tonight. Cross country is 8:16. Golf is 8:23. And boys tennis is 8:28. There is no girls tennis anymore in the fall because it has been moved to the spring to create a little more balance in our middle school offerings in Marion County. So that's where we are at Beech Grove Middle School.
I feel like we're a quiet crowd this evening. Like we should get some whoop whoops. Like welcome back. Yay. We ended the year with a fantastic graduation and celebrated the next phases of life for the class of 2018. We always kind of unpack that data. Of our 200 plus graduates, 60% are headed to a 2 or 4 year college. 20% are headed into their designated workforce path. 5% are headed into an apprenticeship program or career education. 7% are headed into the military, and 7% are taking a year off, admittedly, because sometimes you just have to take a year off to figure that out. So we wish them luck in all of their endeavors. Smoothest start, thanks to Dale and his team, Tim and specifically Quentin, but all of the building techs, rolling all of that out, getting everybody ready at the beginning of the year. There will always be hiccups, but one thing that's just sort of near and dear is we all approach that from a positive way and hit the ground running. So it was good, and I appreciate all of the work from them getting us ready. Our focus this year will really be navigating the grad pathways for the current 8th grade class. It becomes their graduation requirements, but we're still opting in for a lot of our students to really align their after-school plans with what they're doing in high school. So we'll be able to share a lot more in terms of apprenticeship programs, that career building for students to really align those pathways. We'll also look to transition to the new assessment system, which will come in 2 years, essentially 3 years, because we'll take a year off. So we're taking a look at that in all of our cluster and PLC plans. From an accountability standpoint, definitely looking at unpacking the 2-letter grades that we will get this year, sharing information about what those are, what that means for our subgroups. And as any of the principals can share, our #1 focus is taking a look at how we can increase the opportunities for students and make sure that we're sharing all of the good stuff from an accountability standpoint. Unfortunately, increasing those opportunities for the high school means a heads up for testing this year. I kind of planted this seed with a number of people. We've shared it in our conferences with parents, but we will test quite a bit. The SAT, ACT, sometimes twice a year. ASVAB, ISTEP, PSAT, AP, and NWEA will be the testing plan for the high school. And in part, we know that detracts a little bit from instructional time, but we're trying to marry that with providing opportunities for students to meet those grad pathways. Some upcoming dates to remember. Home football opener is this Friday against Lutheran. Please come join us. It's going to be fun. Parent-teacher conferences for the fall are September 5th. And then homecoming is September 7th with the dance on the 8th. Thanks, and welcome back.
Thank you, principals. I think we'll go ahead and move on to Dr. Baer with the curriculum update.
Good evening, everyone. As you can see in the curriculum update this week, our Mrs. Bass and Mrs. Story provided some insight onto the things going in the building. To kind of summarize those, a lot of work on our content-specific teaching assignments, and I think it's a big hit. I know my wife is a 6th grade teacher and loves the idea of just teaching science and then some social studies in the next 9 weeks. But putting teachers where they and their principals feel they fit best is a practice that we spent a lot of time thinking about last year, and it has seemed to be off to a good start in the K through 6. And then I know, as Mr. Gearhart explained, he's worked hard with his team on the block scheduling, so that's been a big push, and again, a lot of positive comments, a few, just some aches and pains getting used to it, but I really think that it's going to be a positive in terms of quality instructions in our building. Also, you'll see, again, this year, it's still one of our common focus, and that is the social emotional learning. That's just going to continue to grow and be a focus of each of our buildings. So those kind of things kind of highlight what's going on in the first 2 weeks. As our principals have said, from not only do they feel like it's been a very positive standpoint, kickoff to the new year, but I feel that it has been also. And I just want to echo those sentiments, and it's been an exciting start of the school year. I also provided a list of some curricular programs, some of the foundational programs that we're working on district-wide. I thought it might be good for you to see some of those things that are occurring in our buildings. So that's the first page on your handout that I provided. And I kind of shared some of the things going on from a K through 8 standpoint. And the first one is our Pearson Science. So K through 8, our students are using a Pearson Science program. It is a hybrid program, which means that it has very in-depth online resources, but then it also has consumable books. So that's very positive because it allows the kids to write. As research indicates, if you not only read some things but write it down, it's better retention. So the consumables are very positive from that standpoint. Nice thing about the Pearson Science is that it had a leveled reader libraries. So each of the teachers received a leveled reader library that came with the program. And the fourth bullet is kind of the unique thing about that, is that not only are we using it for our science instruction, but we're using it for our reading instruction in our elementaries also. So that is one of the foundational pieces of the kind of the nonfiction reading. So it's going to, our science instruction had been limited because, of course, math and reading are huge on our state testing. It's important for those kids to have those as they move through our classes in our district. But with this science program, it's allowed us to have a really well developed reading base too to add to that. So it really worked well that not only will it increase the science instruction, but also be a great reading platform for our district. So we'll get science in several areas with the science and the reading instruction. So very positive on that. I've also included a website there if you have any interest in looking at that website. It kind of gives you an idea of some of the research in why Pearson's such a positive hybrid science program, and just some background on the Pearson Science here if you're interested. The other thing, K through 8, is our Ready Math. And again, that is new K through 8. We have had that grades 4 through 8, but we've added K through 3 this year. So again, that articulation K-8 on a consistent math program, we're very excited about that, to have that common language throughout our buildings. And our 4th grade teachers would have to take our 3rd graders and kind of introduce them to the program. Now they'll have that instruction from K on. So I know Mrs. Probus and her team are excited about the opportunities, and our curriculum coordinator is Mrs. LaFavors, has been working hard on the articulation between the 2 buildings at Hornet Park and at Central Elementary. So very positive in that regard. Additionally, one of the foundational pieces that we have at the middle school is Plato. And Plato is somewhat of a remedial content, which if kids are struggling with seeing it in the classroom setting, they can go and take it and have that instruction on a one-on-one on a computer basis. It also provides content to teachers to help support their instruction. But that's often used by our classroom teachers, but it's also heavily used in our enrichment academies at our high school and at our middle school. So that's a very important piece of curriculum that we use and that's grades 7 through 12. The 9 through 12, we do purchase some textbooks, and those are for the AP and dual credit courses as required by that higher ed institution that's certifying those kids. Other than that, for the most part, all other courses develop their own curriculum using the state standards, but they distribute that material through the Canvas learning system. You know, it's very difficult for a kindergartner and our lower elementaries to have that learning platform being as widely used as it is at the 9 through 12 level. So that's why you see 9 through 12 having much more reliance on that learning platform, because it's easier for those kids to navigate and be in tune with a learning management system. And that's just a system that teachers go in and import all of their lessons, their resources, labs, so that kids can work on that at home. And again, just something that's a little more effective in the higher secondary levels. And also heavily at the high school level is Plato. So Plato is pretty much a 7 through 12 program, and we have a lot of Plato use at our high school to help kids that, again, need that help if they've taken a course, maybe had some struggles with it. This is a platform for it. The HEA uses it when you have several kids if you have 20 kids who have different needs, you can assign a Plato class to them. They can work through it, and then you have a teacher that's there to help guide them when they need questions. But that just allows us to attack more of the credit needs of a high school student when they have that, much more different needs, and each kid in that HEA may have different needs from a credit standpoint. So those are kind of the foundational pieces. There are also little kind of odds and ends programs that we use, but in terms of the foundational pieces in the district, those are kind of the ones that I wanted to highlight tonight.
Any questions for Steve on that?
I had a question here.
Yes.
Is Plato I know my daughter in high school took a summer class, and let me tell you, when she took it, when she signed up, she had to register, and it listed prices for the class.
Right.
And as a Beech Grove student, I was pretty impressed that she was able to take the class for free, and it listed prices for other schools, and so she took a regular standard class, but she was able to take it free and take it online over the summer, and that freed up her schedule for other classes in the fall. So is that under
guessing
Plato, or is that?
That's probably Indiana Online Academy.
Online Academy.
Yeah, and we have an agreement with the Service Center, and the Service Center offers coursework that we may not have, in addition to courses that we may have. Let's say a student needs to take a chemistry class, but they can't fit in their schedule. They can take it in the summer and have that be covered. The way that we cover that is through the DOE provides funding for summer courses. So we are refunded the coursework that's completed through the Service Center. So the state provides money to help support our district in our
So I won't see
summer program.
charges in the finance. I won't see.
You will see a bill to Indiana Online Academy,
Right.
and it's probably in the $33,000 to $50,000 range,
Right.
and that's for hundreds of students. But that is covered through a reimbursement that we get in about September, October. I'm currently going through getting that ready to submit. So
We don't
yes.
run that through the general fund, we have that through a clearing account, so the funds come in and funds are straight
Right.
out. So it's a direct reimbursement, fully funded.
Great.
And to dig a little bit deeper, so the Central Indiana Education Service Center, you belong to, we pay a fee for that. The larger the school you are, the larger your fee is. It's based on how many kids are being day. And it provides staff development, all types of training of any types, online stuff. But in the schools that belong, the superintendent's on that board. So I've been on that board now for 9 years. I was on the board previous school district for the service center. And what's great about it, the idea is that these are all over the state. You pool your resources to provide this. And the thing that makes our service center the most effective is we do all the bus bids for the state of Indiana because we have a wonderful purchasing guy, and even bus bids for other states. And you can go online and look at that, CIESC, a plethora of information on there. But the summer school, you can take classes during the summer, during the fall, and, you know, so for a smaller school that might belong, like a Monroe Gregg or somebody else, they may not have a teacher, and so they can tie into that. We're working right now, Kevin Karras is our executive director for that, to try to deal with some of the dual credit. Because again, even a school our size, we don't have enough dual credit teachers, even though we do a lot. So our kids that are really ambitious, if they want to take a dual credit course during the summer, they can knock it out. So for college credit. So there's just a lot of great things for the service center. If you ever want to take a tour of it, we just moved up to the pyramids, and larger facility, less expensive, but great service for our adult staff and especially for our kids.
And the DOE provides funding for summer school, like courses you take in the summer. They do not fund it if they wanted to take an online class during the school year.
We don't pay for that.
Right, and so that is oftentimes an option with Plato or those others. But typically, Plato is pretty basic in their course offerings. It's a lot of the standard courses that a student might need from a remedial standpoint.
Right.
It's heavily remedial, but there's a lot of resources that teachers can pull and use in their classroom for instruction also.
And that ties back to the question you had on what that was in the claims form. So if we want to put something together so the whole board can see all the different things. And I'll make one comment that I think you want to talk about, Alice.
I'll talk about that in operations.
Okay. What's really interesting, 9 years ago, to quote Chad Mann, that when you got to school, you turned on your coffee pot, you turned on the copier, you waited for both those to warm up, but before that, you had to turn on your computer, your desktop, and you would kind of take a bet on which one would warm up the fastest, the coffee pot, the computer, or the copier. And I think this just shows an example of how far we've come in the integration of technology and curriculum instruction. From the standpoint now that we have content specialists, you know, Steve's wife, for example, she loves science. So she's going to spend the biggest part of her day teaching kids science and social studies. Who else is on her team? I'm going to test your knowledge here.
Mrs. Wood,
Okay.
who's the language teacher on
Right.
that. And then, remind me. Mrs. Ray, yes.
So what Tanya and
Yes.
Aaron and Craig did, we looked at how the students last year scored on different tests and how that tied back to the teacher. So even though Mrs. Smith, I'm sure we have a Mrs. Smith somewhere here, you know, I really love teaching English. But if her math scores were better with her kids, we went to her and said, you're going to teach math. So it's not necessarily what they always love to do, but where do they have the best results? So we looked at a lot of data and how we place teachers on these three-person teams.
And as you can imagine, that 80% of the teachers, I think, they would tell you, fit with what they were good at is what their kids had
Right.
the most success at. It's like, so that was kind of what went into our thought of, if we know that this person really likes math, well, let's have them teach math because they're really good at it. And this person likes science. Instead of saying this person's going to teach math, language arts, science, social studies. And that's hard for a new teacher to teach 4 things. And that was another reason we thought, you know, with all of our new teachers, if we specialize, then it allows them to be a little bit more successful. They just have to focus on 1 or maybe 1.5 content areas when coming into our district. So several reasons, and a lot of thought went into it by our principals and our curriculum team. And so it's pretty exciting to see it in action, and that was all within about 4 months maybe that we kind of brainstormed that and put it in place. So hats off to our team for working together and doing what we feel is best for our kids and what research shows is impactful.
And Krista, I think this goes back to what you and I have talked about, that fatigue, that teacher fatigue. You know, instead of having to prep for 4 different classes and over, so if we project ahead to 3 years from now with the new software, the new curriculum. So again, Steve's wife, for example, she'll have 3 years of teaching science, and every year she's going to know the curriculum better. Instead of having to teach 3 or 4 classes, they're teaching that. And the blocks are how many minutes long?
80.
So we're at 80-minute blocks, so the kids are engaged, and it's an opportunity for our teachers to be the leaders of learning, but let the kids learn. And it's a whole new way of teaching and scheduling, but I think we're gonna see a big difference in the teacher fatigue. I also think it's good for those kids to change classes, even as early as 1st grade. We're going into it slowly in 2nd and 3rd grade, and we think it's gonna be a positive. So, to quote an old commercial, since I'm one of the more mature people in the room, we've come a long way, baby. And I think we really have. I think our curriculum instruction and the great leadership we have at the building level and the district level, this is kind of cool stuff, you know?
It'll be a recruitment tool too.
We hope so. Yeah, we think it, and I think retention. I think we're gonna have less teachers leave, and I think our kids are gonna be more successful, and I just think it's a very positive step across the board for both adults and kids. So,
Thank you
good
so
stuff.
much for sharing.
Thank you.
All right, so Melody, I think we're ready for Community Relations and Education Foundation update.
Just real quick, I'll go through it. The beginning of the year has been great, I echo what everybody else has said, it's been a great start to the year. We've had 2 television interviews and a newspaper interview, front page already, so it's been a great year. If you haven't looked at those links, make sure you do. The one for Wish TV has a real cutie pie from our 3rd grade class at Central, so make sure you take a look at her, she did a great job. And she really tied in about safety, and then again, the emotional well-being, and the morning meetings and community meetings that take place, and how important they are. So that was really great. I know you all read the Hornet Blast from start to finish every Thursday, right? Every Thursday. So that is full of a lot of great events for you to take a look at. It's an overview. And then if you don't already, go to our district Facebook page and make sure you like us, because that way we'll get on your feed. So I've been doing more of when I see people like things, and it says invite to like your page, I've been inviting everybody who's been commenting or liking it or doing so over time. So make sure you do, because then you'll see other neat things on the Facebook page. For Education Foundation, our grant checks will be written for the spring teacher grants no later than the middle of September. They're the ones that were awarded at the end of this last school year, and we get the checks to them by the middle of September. The NFF, the Indiana Association of Public Education Foundations, the annual conference is on September 13th, and I attend that both as a board member and as a executive director of our foundation. The foundation is also going to be renewing their $10,000 annual Donors Choose Grant, which has been very, very popular with our teachers, and it allows our teachers to post projects up to $800, and when they do, they get an automatic $400 right off the bat from the foundation. So it's a really good deal for them. So they enjoy that, and we're going to be renewing that very shortly and getting that to work. So just wanted you to be aware of that.
All right, thank you so much.
Thanks, Melody. I want to just make one comment. I couldn't figure out why on that first week of school, I just figured they were doing Hornet Blast, right? For some reason, I was all off that week, because I looked several times, and it's always at 7 o'clock.
Right.
Well, it was Wednesday.
You're like, no, it doesn't come till the next day, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, Beth, I should have moved it up a day for you.
It's okay.
But you read it the next day.
I did. I look forward to that on Thursday morning. I really do.
I'm glad you did. Thanks.
Okay, let's move on to our minutes. We need a motion to approve the minutes for July 10th, 2018.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Rick. In a second. Thank you, Beth. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, let's move on to claims. We need a motion to approve the claims for August. Thank you, Beth. And a second. Thank you, Jill. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moving on to our business updates, we need a motion to approve the January through July transfers to balanced budget funds that are reallocated revenue and distribute property tax revenue in accordance with common school loans and restructured incremental provisions.
I'll make that motion as well.
Thank you, Rick.
I'll second that.
I think I heard Beth first. Is that okay? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And then, officers of Beech Grove, School Board motion to, the lowest bidder for the Central Elementary roof and window project. And we'll go into all of that.
How many windows are getting replaced?
The window encasements will be along 2 exterior walls. And what's happened is over the years, the concrete filler between the steel kind of frame area, so they actually have to take out brick, re-brick, and fit in new window encasements. So it's 2 full walls worth of teacher classroom window encasements, because they actually are leaking. Water comes down into the floor of those classrooms, and carpeting and area get wet. So it's out of a $303,000 project, I'd say $56,000, $60,000 of it. Would you guess that's about right, Mr. Becker?
Yeah,
Approximately 60 grand?
that is an estimate, obviously, but
Yeah,
it's,
it
yeah,
is.
it's one of those things where they're gonna do some assessment as they go, and,
Right.
but that would be a good estimate at this time.
What's that?
20%?
Yeah, so what we did is, since we had a 1 full architect, and really what you're doing with a roof project is to try to create the envelope where moisture doesn't come in talking with the architect and the roofers, we didn't believe that just getting the roof fixed would stop all the water from coming in, because it really is a window issue as well. So we did a regular roof bid with a provisional appendix, or I don't know what that thing's called.
Appendix as needed, you
Yeah.
know.
So we just bid it all at once, which saves us money on architectural fees. So that bid and everything was sent to you today. And I can answer any questions. You walk the-
It'll be kind of a design build, and we're holding off on the allocation of the other resources till we kind of get through this. Then we'll hit restrooms and other things like we talked about.
What was the timeframe on completing everything?
For this first phase, September 1, we wanted to get it in the board's hands. Yesterday was the open bid, yesterday morning, so we wanted to get it in your hands today for vote, so that the bid, or the roof can get started on September 1. That will be done by the end of fall break.
Oh, excellent.
The roof will be
So,
completed.
Late
Yes.
mid-October.
Yeah,
Before cold weather hits.
right, yeah, and actually, we didn't have a lot of, we had 6 companies interested, only a couple of bids followed through, and that was all because it's such a quick turnaround. We got the kind of the 2 heavy hitters and good prices on both, so we're very happy with our bid.
I'll make a motion to approve the bid.
And I'll second it.
Rick and Jill, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And then I'm gonna go back to any public comment on the agenda.
Good evening. My name's John Bayer, everybody calls me Jack. My grandson Demon is a 3rd grader at Hornet Park Elementary. Me and my wife have 100% custody of him and always will. So I'm not like a third-party grandparent coming in there to rant and rave. I didn't come in here to rant and rave. I got pulled over by one of Beach Grove's finest on the way here, and he gave me a warning, so I'm in good mood. Meet the teacher day this year. I inquired how many students were in his class. I was told 27. Was told the number could go down, could go up. 27 was a pretty common number since he's been in the system. I believe in the Beach Grove school system. I believe in these principals. I believe in our teachers, and I believe in you people administering. I want to be positive, but 27 is a big number of kids in the class. I've spoken to several teachers over the last couple of years in our system for OQ IPS. Pretty much of a consensus is 25 is a drop-dead number, and then to have 100% of their ability to teach, really less than 25. I know the reasons, and it's all about a lot of money and reality in the world, but as a parent, 27 is unacceptable. acceptable as a parent, I think probably to most teachers and everybody it is, but it's reality of money and other things, but, anyway, hopefully next meeting I'll come and get a chance to speak again, and somebody can give me a little goal or give me those answers, what you would think is ideal number, what is acceptable number, and how we proceed to get there.
Well, we're gonna talk about that a little bit later in the work session, but, what grade, he's a third grade right now.
Third grade.
Third grade average is 24.1.
24.1?
Yeah, we've got, this is as of this morning.
Well, that's acceptable.
And
I'm told
now,
27
there might be a class of 26, you know, and what happens during the school year, kids come and go, and it kind of balances out. And I don't know what teacher, you know, he's in, but at that point in time on a roster, it could have been that. We're actually down 99 kids, right now. We'll talk more about that in our work session, but, we had the discussion that we love our class size. Kindergarten's 22.6, first grade's 23.8. Now, remember, there's 9 sections. And again, this is all data as of this morning. Kindergarten, we have 229 kids, an average of 22.6, so obviously you're gonna take 229 divided by 9. That's my Excel spreadsheet. First grade is 243, which is 23.8.
What grade is that?
First.
243?
Yeah.
9 classes?
Yeah. And again, I'll be glad to share this with you. 240, second grade is 23.6 and 244 kids, 245 kids in third grade for an average of.
Math wrong, not to interrupt you. 244 kids at 27 in 9 classes, or am I wrong?
Divided by 9?
Huh?
Divided by 9? Yeah, I could, I'm sorry, I'm reading last year. I apologize. Thank you, great, yeah. Kindergarten, 203 for 22. And guys, it's right there in yellow, I can read it pretty easily. I was reading last year's numbers, thank you. First grade is 214, average of 23. Second grade, 212, average of 23.6. 217, third grade, 24.1. 223, in fourth grade, 24.8, 225 kids at 25.0. And sixth grade is 235 kids at 26.1, which is close to that 27, but it's a little bit more palatable for us as we get a little bit older. Seventh graders are a big class. What's really interesting about seventh grade, remember last year how it just jumped up a bunch? I went back and did some research on that. The increase was all local Beach Grove kids. You know, sometimes, you know, more kids kind of transfer in, but that big class in seventh grade, the big jump last year when they came in, remember that? It started about 245 in the spring, and they kept on coming. It was all Beach Grove kids, which is interesting. Eighth grade, 231 for 25.5, which most middle schools would kill to be anywhere under 28 at that grade level. And high school, high school is hard to do a class average because they're all over the place, but, still at the high school, our average, if you take a 9th section, actually I did 8 on those, outside of 9th grade, we're still 27, 24, 25, so this is the best class size we've had in the 9 years I've been here. Now, part of the reason is we're down in enrollment, which is not good, but one of our goals to talk to the board about is, what can we do from a fiscal standpoint to try to maintain this moving forward? Because I think part of our great start this year has been because class size is a little bit smaller. And so we feel pretty good about where our class sizes are.
We did some budget planning today as well, because I had to fill out some forms on how to allocate dollars for personnel. And I just wanted to mention, we have 44 in-class teachers' aides on staff. So 168 teachers and 44 in class. So that's almost, for 13 grades, right, K through 12, that's over 3 per grade level of student or teacher assistants. numbers are good, but I also think our supports
good.
that we're putting in place as well has really made a difference too.
Yeah, we hired 3 additional teaching assistants in area of special education this fall on top of we added a math teacher at the middle school, science teacher at the high school, a phys ed teacher to split between both buildings, so we did some staffing.
Can I add some things, Paul, too?
Sure.
When all of the funding changed in Indiana and they basically opened up the borders where kids could go anywhere, and we tossed around the idea first of having a tuition and only accepting certain people, then they said, well, you can't do that. So we had to change things around. And as a board, we had to, and it was a lengthy discussion about how many kids do we want to have in the classes. You know, everybody here on administratively have been teachers, so they should know how many kids are acceptable in a class. And we felt 25 was a good number, and that's been tossed around already. We put a maximum of 28 because, like Dr. Kaiser said, people move in, kids move out, and it's hard to tell, it's hard to gauge when those kids are coming and going. But we put a max of 28, and Dr. Kaiser said if that's a number that stays true, that we would look at hiring another teacher or maybe opening up enrollment and allow more kids in so we could afford more teachers. But that was our max. But I just wanted you to know that it's not a subject that has gone lightly. It's been a lengthy discussion amongst the school board members.
And Jack, one thing.
Those numbers are fairly acceptable, I would think. 24 would be a great number, 25 a kind of max number. But
Right.
I thought even my grandson's been running with 26 or 27.
Who's his teacher? You know?
I want to get her.
No, I want to know. I want to know so I can look at the number.
Mrs. Towle.
Okay. Yeah.
That was on
Yeah.
Meet the Teacher Day. She
Yeah.
said that number was subject to change.
Yeah. I would be surprised if that's the number now, but we'll look and I'll touch base back with you. But what we did, and I think everybody knows this, and those that are watching in TV land, by law, we have to set a capacity because we take transfer kids. And we set that at 28, only from the standpoint, because when kids come and go, one class might be at 26, and the principals have to place in different places. And when we start the school year, sometimes we might be at 28, but, you know, we have a 33% attrition and change during the school year. So it's ebbing and flowing. And again, we've had this discussion, we're concerned because we're down in enrollment, but we're thrilled about these class sizes. Thrilled, except for 7th grade, but that's just kind of an anomaly in middle school because, you know, like for example, we have a teacher teaching, Kathy Keller's teaching an extra science class, and we're paying her for that. So that can take those class sizes down. You don't have that flexibility in K-6 as much. And Jack, like you and I talked about last spring, you know, 9 is our number. You know, we don't want to go to 10. You know, first of all, we don't have the room. We feel really good about 9 sections. And like I said, these numbers are outstanding. They're really good.
Keep in mind that 43% of the houses in Beech Grove are rental properties. So that 43% could possibly change out. So whereas, you know, it could be a starting family that's been renting and they're deciding to move out and they go to Franklin Township to start a family, and then a family comes to Beech Grove with 6 kids, and that happens often. And then all of a sudden, now we've thrown 6 kids into our school system, and that's 6 kids is a lot.
Don't
for a
the
school-sized
principals, though, when we have a new student, you look at the enrollment
He'll
and
balance it.
put that student at the low, you know, whoever has the lowest. Because my wife's a teacher, and they have a team, and when they get new students, they'll say, well, Mrs. Lamb has X number, and this other teacher has smaller number. They put the student over to the other teacher, or you know, they'll reallocate, you know. So I'm seeing that the principals are agreeing that that's what they do. So if they had a high number, they may go back down to the average eventually, because the teachers, you know, don't want to have more students than the other class.
And Jack, I thought I had your cell phone. I'm not sure. Let's
That's fine. I mean, thanks for letting me speak, and thanks for answering. And those numbers you gave me were better, a lot better than what I perceived.
That's
we've had you for
we're thrilled with the numbers, we're not happy, we're down some kids. We're trying to be as creative as we can moving forward, to try to replicate this moving forward. You know, we think that'd be a positive, we can do that, so we're gonna be as creative as we can going, moving forward. So, good question. That's part of our agenda.
Thank you so much for coming this evening. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but we appreciate your comments and your feedback.
Good five, pretty good, I mean, I'm gonna stick around. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's move on to the personnel update. We need a motion to approve the employment recommendations as listed. Thank you, Beth. Second that.
I'll second.
April. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, let's move on to our operations update by Dr. Bayer.
Yeah, again, as the update indicates, you know, our transportation department, I thought, did an excellent job this year getting everything ready. And I think Dr. Keeley is one building at the middle school possibly, and I think the worst was that a bus was 3 minutes late on the first day, and that's a, you know, hats off to our team for working hard to, you know, get kids picked up, and for parents having their kids out there and being willing to get rid of them on day one, because I know a lot of times there's a lot of hugs and things, and it allows us to be a little bit behind on first day of school. So very positive in all regards on that start to school year with our transportation. In terms of school safety, I kind of wanted to update some things on that. We do have over 30 cameras up and running now at our high school from the interior and exterior components. So I know Mrs. Walters is excited about that. Now that we have some roof numbers for Central, that'll be something that we work on at Central too, is looking at security and upgrading cameras there also. But one of the things that we felt last year was coming to some conversations that we had at different buildings was our school safety programs and how we respond to, say, irate parents, intruder in our buildings and things like that. And we had a lot of conversations on our safe school team, and we felt like it was time to look at, instead of a program that we've kind of come up with, go to something that's a little bit more kind of a program. And we felt that we had ideas from building standpoints what we wanted to do. And they all kind of revolved around something called ALICE training. And so instead of kind of, again, doing our own, and we felt that going with a strong program that's already developed would be our best bet. So this summer we had Mrs. Benton, Skeens Benton from Carmel High School, come down and talk to our district team about the ALICE program. So I went ahead and put together a little bit of a idea of what ALICE is, because we really felt that this is something that could help our district in the future and something that we really wanted to be able to roll out to our team. But we felt that it is definitely something that you as a school board need some kind of initial insight on, and just talking about this before we brought it to you for conversation or for a motion to approve it. And so what I provide you tonight is kind of an outline of what the program is. Earlier at about 6 o'clock I sent you an email that has a PowerPoint about ALICE also. It's the program that the trainer from Carmel presented to us as a district team. I thought you could kind of work your way through it if you have that interest. But what I did is I kind of put together about what is ALICE. And ALICE is the program that a lot of the districts use around here that actually have a true program in place. As you know, ALICE is a school safety program created in year 2000 to offer additional options to students and staff in dealing with an armed intruder or an irate intruder. The neat thing about this is that it was in conjunction with law enforcement and teachers, so that it was determined to be age appropriate, because it is a K-12 program from a school standpoint, but many professional organizations use this also, United States Post Office, major corporations, etc. Those, if you look at what ALICE actually means, it talks about an alert. We alert systems, we alert building throughout the building now. We have a lockdown. A lockdown is a secure place. We do have lockdowns. Our buildings are always on lockout. But what that means is that we lock all of our buildings and keep everybody out. But inside the building, we're continuing with education. So what a lockdown is actually when our teachers lock the doors and they're in place, or they're allowed to make a decision on what they want to do next. You know, as a safe school trained person, you can never predict what's going to happen in each situation. So you always have to give people the right to make decisions on their own, but you always have kind of a platform to base decisions that you make. So that's kind of the lockdown idea. It's creating that safe place, but you're not stuck in there if you want to move and do other things. And then inform. The idea is to use some of our cameras, use some of our other resources to let people know in the building where the situation is at. If you know that there's a situation in the gymnasium, there's no reason to be sitting down in your room in the library and just waiting. You know, if they know that it's in the gymnasium, the idea is that you can push them out and go to safety. So that's kind of the idea of informing. And then counter, and this is one of the C of Alice, and this is the last resort, but this is where kids, teachers are trained to distract that intruder. If you saw, you know, we had that in Noblesville, where the teacher threw a basketball at the student. And it's simple things like that, but it is very intent training that teaches people how to respond to things. So it's something that you have to train consistently on. And as you see below, it talks about that training. And then obviously the idea is to evacuate when possible. So that's kind of what Alice means. And the question to us is, why do we need to add anything more? As you know, we do lock kids down if there's an intruder, but there's more to that. At least that's the philosophy of this program, is that there are other things that you can do if you're informed of where the situation is occurring, et cetera. And again, this is all learned through the training that's provided. How much time will it take away? Again, we have programs in place such as HRT and other learning times throughout our day that we could provide consistent training. That consistent training may be monthly, quarterly, et cetera, and that's something that as we go and look and we get the training ourselves, that we'll learn more about. And then again, students are trained during that time during the school day. The key with the Alice program is that there are situations where they practice things, and each grade level does age-appropriate practice. And again, that's kind of the neat thing about it, is that it was teachers and law enforcement work together on that, because not all responses can be the same from an emotional standpoint with kindergarten kids as opposed to, you know, a high school student. And it just talks about there in the back how many people use it. But I just want to kind of provide you an idea of what Alice is. And like I said, I have provided an email that has a PowerPoint with more in-depth training. But from the conversations that we had this summer and the training that we had and the conversation with that trainer, we felt that it really fit what we would like our program to look like from a district standpoint. We're not very far from that, but there are a few things that training can present where we could be more effective at dealing with that. So that's why we felt that this Alice training is something that's very important for our district to move forward and better provide security for our kids. What training is it's a the trainer type model, and it's around $590 per person. So our idea would be to train these liaisons through the district who would take it back and train, you know, our teachers. And so, you know, we were thinking maybe 4 to 5 people getting trained from a district level and a building level. So really an upfront out of pocket is anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000 would be my estimate. So it's something that's used pretty extensively throughout the state. With Mr. Cox as one of the lead persons in the Safe School implementation, the Safe School programming. He's He was on the board when they started Safe School Training. We've kind of always had our own little flair, but we feel like this is something it's got the K-12 age-appropriate approach that would take us forever to develop. So we felt this would be kind of our best approach to do it effectively and with articulation throughout our district. So brought that to you tonight. I'd just like you to kind of look over it, and if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email, and I can answer the things that I know, but also get that information from Mrs. Benton also if there's something that I can't answer.
Is there a website we can go look at?
Yeah, there is. I'm not sure if I've provided that or not, but I think it may have been in the email. But if not, you can just search Alice Training, and it has a pretty extensive website that talks about some of these things.
There's a number of YouTube videos as well.
Right.
They interview police officers and teachers. There's a lot of information. It's very, very, one of the best shows.
One of the key things why we came to you last spring as we talked about budget and looking at upgrading our buildings, it's critical we get these cameras. I was had a meeting with Chief Swartz, Tom and I did last week about how we think it's critical now at the high school, if there's, even at night, a patrolling officer with their internet, they can sit there and look at every camera in our building. And so it's real critical. We'll get Central done here in the near future with the other buildings, and just from the safety and the security. And we've been had a few intruders in this building. We think that will cease and desist on people trying to get in because there's going to be cameras everywhere. In the parking lot, this campus is much better covered than it was. So we're going right there. Questions on else?
Yes.
When you inform or communicate, like a mass message, like if someone is in the building.
Right.
Do you call the teachers? Do you send that? How do you push that out to everybody?
Well, currently, and I think it's very similar to how Alice, works, is that we will train people, there's no code words. You just, if you have access to a intercom, we'll teach teachers how to use it appropriately, give them permission to use those things, any way that we can. Text messages, whatever the case might be. I had a meeting with the gentleman, Dr. Keelan, I did last week, and there are programs out there that allow apps that have intercoms on them, that you can have groups at the high school where you're communicating right through your phone. You can send alert messages to parents directly from your phone. You don't have to pull up Sky Alert. And so we're looking at that. They came to approach us of being a pilot. Now, oftentimes with pilots, it's, yeah, we're going to pilot, but we want you to pay for the monitoring and all this. So far, from our initial conversation with the gentleman, it is truly a pilot. His name's Roger Veach, and Axia ATP is the name of the organization. And they work hand in hand with Jeremy Brilliant. And this Jeremy Brilliant is, his wife's part of the Marion County Food Rescue that's been a part of our organization. So she recommended us for him to work with. And we really feel like that it is a true pilot. So we're excited to continue to talk to them, but really putting everything together where if a fire alarm is pulled, that would go directly to a phone and tell everybody on that message that fire alarm by the library has been pulled, which would allow, then you could communicate with, Mr. Irwin, there was a fire alarm right outside your, right outside your room. So it's that type of connection of all of our cameras and intercom systems, et cetera. So it's a pretty elaborate process, and so we're kind of skeptical in our initial email, but I was pretty clear that I sat through these, and it's not always free. Can you assure me that it's free? And they said yes. And so we've been working through it, and it's a work in progress. But we're hoping that that will be something that we can continue to develop and make our schools more safe. So I'll keep you updated on that.
Thank you very much. Let's move on then. We need a motion to approve the overnight and or out-of-state field trips within our packet. Beth? Second?
Second?
Rick? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next, we need a motion to approve the fundraiser request
motion to approve.
Second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, April. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I don't believe we have any policies that we need to look at. I don't think there's any committee or community reports. So let's move on to success stories.
Great start to our school year.
Great start. I don't know how many people have had to utilize South Grove and arrival and dismissal, but there is a marked improvement due to the city of Beech Grove redoing the entrance and exit. I mean, it's made a whole lot of difference, and we have some very observant, for the most part, some very observant people who are picking up and dropping off this year, so not near, I kind of keep track of things, I'm kind of pay a little bit of attention to detail sometimes. And I've noticed that not nearly as many people are actually on their phones when, during dismissal time, once they dismiss. And I think that's I'm not sure what the reasoning is behind it, but it got to a point where there were probably 8 out of the 10 cars that people were talking on the phone. I'm not saying there aren't any, but I think it's probably been cut down in half. That they're actually maybe paying attention to their students that come out. I think that, that attributes to a student being successful in the beginning of the year too, so. Yeah, wonderful, garden at South Grove. I happened to see it, and I didn't realize what a difference a raised garden could be, but there aren't weeds. The water, actually stays there. I don't know, and I think we may try that at home, just to see if we can do as good as we can, without a whole lot of extra attention, I think. So, those are a couple of things, but great beginning to the school year, one of the best I've ever known.
My hairdresser came in the library today, and she has a girl that's a kindergartner this
Uh-huh.
year. And she had for about a year been, asking me about schools. They looked at parochial schools, they looked at Christian schools, they looked at homeschooling, and she's like, tell me about Beech Grove schools. And so I told her, and she and her kids came in today, and she's like, I couldn't be more pleased. So as a lady that had done a lot of looking around and asking questions and things like that, she was really excited about, and has 2 more that she's probably going to push through the school system. So that was exciting. I've also, as a parent, been very excited about the block schedule of the middle school. Henry's in the weightlifting class, which is a great way to start his beach days. With his IEP, he is taking advantage of 2 new classes that they put together for the special ed kids. One is the basic skills, where they sort of look at what's going on in their class. They help them out with adjusting to middle school. But the second one is even better. It's a life skills class. And they spent the first week talking about grocery shopping and setting a grocery budget and the difference between name brand and generic and things like that, which would actually be great for any kid in Beech Grove City schools. But with a kid that has processing issues, to have an hour and a half 3 times a week to talk about what it's like to be a contributor to society and how to set up and be successful with that, it's like, great, you can do clip lists from now on. So I did not have any concerns going in about the block schedule, but the excitement that he shows me at home, I think reflects well on what's going on. So that's all.
It's a good change of pace.
It is a good change of pace. I mean,
Something different every day.
especially since that great age group is just antsy to begin with, and having 2 different days. You have a set 3 days, and then you have a set 2 days, and then it flip flops. I think it really gives them. I think it gives the teachers a break mentally. I think it gives the kids a break. I think I'll be interested to see how the HEA adjusts with having some of these different classes available. Maybe the emotional stress isn't that bad, having to go to 2 or 3 classes a day that you can't stand, seeing how behavioral issues might mitigate themselves. I really think it's a neat opportunity.
Sure, great feedback. Steph, you and your sons at Blockade, you want to get any feedback from them?
I love it. The other night, math is not my best subject by any stretch, especially not, 8th grade math, but he could not get a problem, and I was like, buddy, I'm sorry, this is about as much as I can help you. And he goes, it's fine, I can just ask Mr. Winton tomorrow on block. And I was like, this is absolutely amazing. And so as far as that goes, like, I love it. I'm right there with you.
Yeah,
I love it. I feel like he's had so much more instruction. He doesn't get anything. He's a wreck if he doesn't get something. He's like, oh, no worries. I can ask Whitten tomorrow, Okay.
Yeah, they
and
just
I
get more
love it.
time. Yeah, it's just
Yes. I
There,
think it's amazing.
as Mr. Gearhart indicated earlier, that they do have a lab class. So one day they have the math class, the next day they have math lab. So if they're struggling, that next day they'll have a math lab where they can get help before the next class. And that's same with English.
Now, on top of that, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, they can have the tutoring right after school.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, it's
Right.
like,
And
it's
the
got
building.
safety nets built in that I don't think were available, even last year when Nathan was there. I think it really gives that sort of comprehensive learning chance.
And I want to add this, my daughter went here, she was so prepared for college with the blockade of the high school. Compared to me, 2 years she was on a 7th grade day. And I think to piggyback off for that, for this son, for you, he's going to have 2 years. So when he goes to the high school, and I mean, for your son, it's going to be so much better transitioning. It's not going from 4 core classes to 8 from that middle school to the high school. We think that transition is going to be
Nathan
better.
hasn't had any problems being a freshman, but Nathan's a different kid than Henry. Henry would have struggled as a freshman going from.
Organized.
Yeah. I mean, it just gives him a chance, with those IEP supported courses and stuff like that. It's just really good.
The blockade really prepares kids for college, across the board, or whatever school, even a job or anything else. I think that variety is really good for kids.
Any other success stories?
Hey, I'd like to, I'm just real pleased. I see a lot of donations coming in from the community and, from, various different clubs and even individuals and even people who have apparently left in their wills possibly even, or in memory of in memory of a deceased one. And anyway, just, the board, I'm sure, I appreciate all the donations. That's really well thought of. And I do want to mention one thing is that I have 2 girls in high school, and the freshmen noticed how, the cafeteria is crowded, and there's lines and it's busy, and she comes in due to her timing. She kind of comes in late, and so she's kind of last in line. And but you got to make initially what might seem a negative turn it into a positive. And so now she's over the weekend she's wanting me to go to the store and buy some lunch items, and she'll pack her lunch, and that way she has longer time to sit with her friends and socialize, and she likes to eat her lunch and not starve her down. So anyway, I mean that's a positive. You learn how to deal with those kind of situations. So anyway, it's a great start. We love it. So, in fact, I had one other a neighbor friend who used to. They live in Beech Grove, and they used to go to a Christian school. And when the daughter decided then to come to Beech Grove because she wanted to be in the band, and it was something that she really wanted. She saw our curriculum and was impressed, and wanted to take classes that were not available in the school that she was going to. And so, so it's not a transfer student, but someone here in Beech Grove said, hey, I really should have been going to this school, so they did, so.
One more thing I wanted to add that I didn't remember. If you haven't had a chance, at the high school level, we do have a new, assistant principal, Andrew Carr. He has some long time shoes to fill, but he's a very nice, very student-oriented, young vice principal, who comes to us with a wealth of, I'm not sure, he's excited. Excitement, I think, is a good word to use for him. He does have 4 young boys that'll probably be coming to some Beech Grove events that he'll be able to be at, and it's, he will be a definite asset to our, I know we have a lot of new staff, but he just happens to be, one that will be around a lot. So if you haven't had the opportunity and you are at a high school event, he's the young guy on board, so maybe I'm not supposed to say young guy, but, I think you'll really like him. Make a real difference. He just has that vigor for young people, you can just tell, so.
All right, well, let's go ahead and take a motion to adjourn then.
Motion to adjourn?
Thank you, Rick.
Second.
Thank you, April. 7:50.
Record time.
Thank you.